Before this video starts, I would like to make a quick note that at some point in this video there will be spoilers for Reanimal. Can I just say quickly, before we really get into it, this game is really good, like really good. Although you better prepare to be tested, because it's not rated 18 in my country for nothing, you know. Anyways, let's get into the video. Alright, so this is the spoiler-free section of the video. My copy of Reanimal that I got is for the Nintendo Switch 2. And after mentioning that, let's talk about the performance, as it is really good. Very rarely, if ever, did it stutter at all. I think I only had one case, and that was only at the very start of the game, so it's very impressive that they managed to get it to run as well as it did. This is more of a thing I always liked ever since the first teaser for this game dropped, but the presentation of this game is solid as well. I do like how the children characters are scaled to be the actual sizes of children, whilst in Tarsier's previous works they were a little scaled down or stylized a bit more. But yeah, the performance and the presentation is really good. Now the controls are really good and are a lot more streamlined. For most actions you either just walk up to the object to interact with it, or you just push one button. That's it. I think that's really good that they did that, because in some of their previous works, which will not be named because I don't blame the community for getting too annoyed that said games are being compared too much to Reanimal, so I won't name them here, but I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about anyway. In those games, you had to hold, like, the interact button, whether it be to climb surfaces or to carry an object. That's not the case for Reanimal. It is a lot more streamlined, like I said, and it is a lot easier to understand and do, so I think that is really cool. Thumbs up Tarsier Studios for making interacting with stuff way more accessible. I briefly mentioned this in the last section, but the character designs and the creature designs, I like them a lot. Starting with the kids' designs, they are pretty cool. I do like them. I'd say the girl is the most simplest, but I think that was done on purpose for reasons which we'll get into in the spoiler section of the video. The other kids look good as well. The boy, I do like his design a lot. And the three other kids, which all have names, did you know? Hood, Bandage and Bucket, all do look pretty nice as well. It does set them apart, and they're easy to remember because they're named after the stuff they wear, so that's pretty cool. Now we have to talk about monster designs, one of my favourite parts of horror games, and Reanimal does not disappoint, as there are a lot of cool ones. There are two of them in particular that I really like, starting off with the Mother, who is a mole-spider hybrid. Yeah, you're probably looking at the image on screen and thinking, what am I looking at? Yeah, I can't blame you. She was shown off in earlier trailers, and she still looks just as cool as she did then. Overall, a solid monster design. The second design that I would like to talk about here, that mostly remains spoiler-free, is the weird seahorse creature. Tarsier did a very good job at hiding it in one of its trailers, covering it with like loads of water effects, I think it was. But yeah, seeing this guy for the first time was really surreal, and if you do try and move on to one of the areas before you save one of the kids, you do get a cool like sequence with him, and you do get a cool death animation. I think it's really clever how Tarsier blocked you from progressing further than you should by just having creatures like kill you or something. I don't know, I just thought that was cool. Anyways, onto the creature itself. Just like the Mother, I really like this design as well. It was a bit jarring to see it for the first time when I was doing one of the puzzles in that area, just minding his business at that point. But yeah, I do like, especially with this design, that it leans into the uncanny valley a little bit, because what the hell is this? Like, that was kind of my first instinct reaction to seeing him. It's like, what is that and why is that? But I think that's the point. I think that's why they designed it the way they did. You just sit there in confusion. You're just like, who came up with this? But yeah, I do like how the eyes kind of look like they're bulging out a little. It looks a little bit goofy. That's just me though. You might find it like the scariest thing on planet Earth. But yeah, once again, a really good creature design. I like the uncanny valley kind of look that they went with it. The time period that Reanimal is set is in World War One. As you play through the game, there are things like sea mines in some of the areas where you're driving the boat. There are some parts in the late game that make it a lot more clear that it is set at that time. And it really does just make you wonder, how bad have things gotten? And you'll see how bad it is when we get to the spoiler section of the video, because yeah, it does get crazy. The final thing to talk about in the spoiler-free section of this video are the chase sequences. If you have played Tarsier's previous works, you would know that their chase sequences are pretty well animated and are very immersive. The same does apply here for Reanimal, and even more so, because some of these sequences had me absolutely mental. Because look at the animation work on some of them. It's like, how did they get it to work? In fact, one of the segments was so crazy, I do have a snippet of it that I'd like to show you here, just so you get an idea of how good Tarsier are at animating their chase sequences. We are now entering the spoiler section for this video, so if my previous talks have intrigued you about this game, this is the point where I would say I would click off this video or press off, depending on where you're watching this, and go pick up the game for yourself and give it a playthrough, and then come back to me when, you know, you want to hear how I say about near the end of the game. Because it is really crazy but also really good. So yeah, the spoilers will begin shortly. Now, do you guys remember at the very start where the kids were looking down a well? This will be important later. The girl, as you play through the game, has moments where she doesn't feel so good. And then we see that there is a lamb at the bottom of the well. How the hell did it get there? Well, put a pin in that, we'll discuss that later. It starts to get bigger as we get more visions of it, until eventually, by the last one, it then escapes. But how it escapes genuinely did shock me, as I imagine it did most of you. The girl vomits the darn thing up. How the hell is she still alive after that? Anyways, it then runs off and eats one of the kids. Hood. I don't think I noticed the first time round, so after it, you know, caused some carnage and ran off, I was just sat there with bucket and bandage, like, where's Hood? Obviously I now know she got eaten. And then as you progress through the chapter, one by one each child gets eaten, until all that's left is the girl. And the sheep grows to a kaiju level threat, and it gains snake-like attributes. yeah, I'm sure nothing will go wrong here. So yeah, everything goes wrong, and then the girl gets eaten. Which I think we can all safely say, at this point in the game, they're all dead. Yeah, I know, really unfortunate, but it is what it is. We then get flashbacks that are both normal looking and a bit trippy. It's Tarsier Studios, of course it's going to be a bit trippy. One of the flashbacks is the boy, Hood, Bandage and Bucket in the orphanage, in a circle with, I'm guessing, some kind of bowl or something in the middle. And they do a blood ritual. Why? But yeah, they do the blood ritual. And what happens afterwards, when we're playing from the girl's point of view in the flashback, is genuinely heartbreaking. So the boys go into a barn, which you playing as the girl, you shortly do as well. And there is a rabbit on the floor that is unfortunately dead. Don't worry guys, no real rabbits were harmed in the making of this game. And the girl seems quite sad about it as she approaches it and, you know, tries to comfort it. Then the doors close. You know, she pulls out her weapon, she's rightfully scared as she should be. And then you hear her getting knocked out and tied up. At this point of the game, I was like, I really don't like where this is going. Then you go back to the other kids, and you're playing as the boy again, and he's dragging a body bag. As it goes into view, you realise that they're gonna sacrifice the girl, and they do, by throwing her in the well. Now before they do that, we have once again some very trippy imagery of sheep standing on two legs surrounding the kids. This most likely didn't actually happen, but it's just there to make you think what the hell is going on. Then we cut to the same viewpoint of the well at the start of the game, but it's only the boy, Hood, Bandage and Bucket that are looking into it. The girl is nowhere to be seen. And then we cut to her at the bottom of the well. Honestly, what jerks for those kids were my first thoughts, especially the boy. That's his sister that he threw in there. What the hell? But we'll get to more of that talking about theories in a bit. So we see a brief moment where she looks like she's getting vecnoed, like something out of Stranger Things, and then drops to the floor again. After the credits roll, you get a scene where it's the well, you know, as if you were standing by it. It then begins to overflow with water, and then something floats to the top, which is most likely the girl. From what I see here, with some logic combined with a bit of theory talk, this is how the world ended up the way it was. They sacrificed the girl. What for? We'll get to that. And that's how the world flooded, and I would not be surprised if that was also how all the animals and humans in the game became abominations. So yeah, that sucks. Now there is another scene you can get if you collect all 5 coffins in your playthrough, which are a little bit trickier to find, but if you've played these kind of games before, you know roughly where to look. So, the extra scene is the girl at the bottom of the well, but these mud tar looking humanoids appear. And it seems like they're paying their respects to the girl, or it's as if they're saying, well, there goes another one. And then we get more context as to how the flood started. It was the creatures. One of them put their hand on the floor, and that's how it started. Now we have more questions. Because if you've noticed, these weird humanoids wear the exact same style of mask as the girl does. So now it begs the question, are these other children that were sacrificed in the past, whether it be from the same group of kids that did it to the girl or just other people in general? They're even the same height as her, so there's absolutely no way it could be a coincidence. Now it's time for the theory talk, aka I sound like a mad woman trying to theorise what happens in a fictional game about a terrible world. Now, you're probably thinking, as I mentioned with the whole the kids sacrifice the girl kind of thing, you're probably questioning, then why are they helping her throughout the events of the game? Well, that's because I believe that they do regret doing the blood ritual. Because in one point of the game, when you're on the motorboat, just driving through a set piece, two of the kids, I believe it's Bandage and Bucket, have a short conversation, with the dialogue saying, and I could be wrong here, you can correct me if you'd like, all comes flooding back, doesn't it? I wish we could go back. Yeah, me too, mate. So that does imply that whatever happened to this world, they did not intend to be the results of the ritual, and they do regret what they did. And I think it's lucky that, the girl doesn't really have much memory of what happened, otherwise she'd be attacking all of you. But yeah, I do think they do regret doing the ritual. Speaking of the girl not having any memory of being sacrificed, let's talk about that. So, if you remember at the start of the game, where you find the girl in the middle of the ocean, lifeless, yeah, she looks really similar to how she did when she floated to the top of the well at the end of the game. And the boy saying, I thought you were dead, it does have a bit more going on with that phrase, besides him just, thinking she was dead. Because he would have remembered the ritual he did. Now, the girl attacking him does make a bit more sense, because there could either be a bit more of a fuzzy memory or just muscle memory and instinct from where she was sacrificed. But I found that really interesting as well, because if you see the ending, it does give a bit more context. Now here's some more fuel to the they regret the ritual fire. If you die at any point in this game and you respawn, you notice that the boy and the girl are comforting each other or hugging each other in a way, and then once you make a movement input, the boy then has one last reassurance to the girl before they then get up and you play the game as normal. I did find that interesting too, considering he did sacrifice his own sister. So I'd like to think that with the events of this game, not only does he and the kids regret the ritual, as I've said, but he's a lot more thankful that, from his point of view at least, his sister miraculously came back to life after he pulled her onto his boat. We know that it's most likely the whale creatures that allowed her to come back to life in a way. Then again, I could be wrong. These are all theories at the end of the day. But yeah, it seems like the events of this game were the kids trying to redeem themselves for sacrificing the girl and, killing her innocent little rabbit who did nothing wrong. Again, no real animals were harmed in the making of this game, I'm sure of that. But yeah, it makes it all the sadder when they all get eaten by the sheep abomination at the end, because it seemed like they got pretty close to their goal. So, what was up with that lamb in the well? Well, pun not intended, I do think that the lamb was always a part of the girl. It's just that the developers, instead of showing the lamb in a stomach, which would have been way too intense, they just showed it in a well, which, yeah, that makes sense, especially if you consider it foreshadowing for later events. The choice of the animal being a lamb is really interesting, as there is the term sacrificial lamb that exists. Again, could have been another form of foreshadowing. Now, what do I personally think of this lamb? I personally think it is a manifestation of the girl's rage. You know, being angry for what the kids did to her, and it being a separate being instead of, the girl just gets angry. It's like, no, it was the sheep that represents that. And the thing that is the most interesting is what it decides to do as soon as it gets vomited up. The sheep runs to get one of the kids, that being Hood, and eats them. Yeah, that does sound like something an angry animal would do. But yeah, it would explain why the girl, still continues to help the other kids throughout the adventure despite everything. And it does explain a little bit why she doesn't remember being sacrificed. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion on the whole deal with the lamb and, why the game plays out the way it does. But yeah, feel free to disagree with this theory. This is the early days of Reanimal after all. If you remember Tarsier Studios' previous works, then it took a long while for people to find proper evidence to structure an actual story. So who knows, maybe what I say is completely bogus in a couple years time, and it's even crazier than that. And those were my thoughts for Reanimal. Now, I did gloss over the war kind of stuff of the game, because that stuff goes crazy, dude. And it is important to mention that, because maybe that was the driving motive to why the boy, Hood, Bandage and Bucket decided to sacrifice the girl. Either that, or maybe for resources, or for the love of the game. I don't think it was for the love of the game, as I mentioned earlier, with the whole respawn animations and all that evidence. But yeah, the war set pieces were crazy, that much I will say. I am aware that Reanimal is going to get 3 post-launch DLCs with one of them, and I'm assuming this won't change as of the recording of this video, summer of this year. So that could make all my theories completely bogus, as I mentioned a little bit ago. Or it could further back them up. We don't know. But with the DLCs being called the Expanded World, it does further add questions like, were the actions of the kids felt across the world? Like, did other people suffer because of what they did? I don't know. We'll have to see. But yes, with couch co-op being an option for multiplayer, I do recommend this game a lot. If you loved Tarsier's previous works on the Little Nightmares IP, yep, there you go, I said it. I only said it once, unlike everybody else in their videos. Then I do recommend this game a lot. It is really good, and if you like weird horror, then this is for you. So, thank you for listening to me yap for however long this video's duration is. In the meantime, I will sit and wait for Reanimal's DLC, and I'll just have to imagine just how much more bonkers this IP could get.